President Trump and I met today as leaders of two sovereign independent nations. And I want to thank the President and the members of his cabinet that attended for welcoming me and my colleagues to the White House and for our very constructive discussions. I conveyed to the President today what our countries have long proven to be true, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. We can get a better deal for our workers. We can create more opportunities for our businesses. We can build stronger economies across North America when we work together. And really today marked the end of the beginning of a process of the United States and Canada redefining that relationship of working together. The question is how we will cooperate in the future, how we can build an economic and security relationship built on mutual respect, built on common interests, and that delivers transformational benefits to our economies. We had what I would describe as wide-ranging and, as I said a moment ago, very constructive discussions. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to meeting in person at the G7 summit in Kananaskis in Alberta. Now, while that's going on, in Canada, we will focus on what we can control. Alors, demain,
so tomorrow I will be meeting with the First Ministers for a call to discuss the conversation that we had here today and to also discuss the work ahead.
We are going to reinforce our strength at home. We will reinforce Canada's security for an increasingly dangerous and divided world. We will transform our border security, our security in the Arctic, and our support for our allies around the world. We'll build an economy that creates jobs, grows incomes, and withstands shocks, when, in fact, the strongest economy in the G7, an economy that works for everyone.
We will build a renewed Canadian economy where everyone can succeed in a world that is being deeply transformed. We will build infrastructure that will allow businesses to access the new markets around the world. And we will build a single Canadian economy, not 13.
We are masters in our own home, and we can give ourselves far more than any foreign government can ever take away. So now is the time to build, and based on the discussion today, to build at home and to build with our partners abroad, including the United States. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now begin the press conference. We'll begin with questions from the traveling delegation. First question, première question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. I was watching your face through the meeting in the Oval Office, and I wondered what was going through your mind when the President talked about erasing the artificial border and how he criticized your predecessor and Madam Freeland.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind as that was going through. With respect to the first point, the President has made known his wish about that issue for some time. I've been careful always to distinguish between wish and reality. I was clear there in the Oval Office, as I've been clear throughout on behalf of Canadians, that this is never going to happen. Canada is not for sale. It never will be for sale. Some things, as I said in the room, some things are never for sale. And he agreed with that. So I distinguish between the two, and then with respect to the importance of reestablishing a constructive relationship for negotiations of a partnership, of an economic and security partnership, which is what we were here for. I look forward, not back, and I think we established a good basis today.
What gives you specifically any indication that the President is willing to renegotiate a new trade deal with you and drop tariffs?
apart from the fact that he said that he would, is willing to have that negotiation. I think that's the main thing. That doesn't presuppose the outcome of the negotiation. As I've emphasized, it's a complex negotiation. There'll be zigs and zags, difficult aspects to it, but the prospect is there. We discussed it in more detail, and as I said a moment ago, we'll be following up both between officials, but also he and I in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Bon. Sorry. Line. Thank you. Thank you.
Bonjour, Monsieur Carney.
Bonjour, madame.
Hello,
Avec quoi
Mr. Carney.
ressortez-vous concrètement?
What are you coming out of this meeting from Mr. Trump with? Well, we had a wide-ranging discussion. We dealt with a number of issues that involve Canada's trade relationship with the United States, and we have a concrete path forward. We had an exchange of views with respect to tariffs and strategic goals on the part of both Canada and the United States. And there are a number of issues where we can advance that discussion. So there is a plan, and there is also a desire on the part of both countries to move forward with those discussions.
Quand il a été question, quand on a posé la question à M. Trump sur
Now,
les
when
tarifs,
Mr. Trump was asked about tariffs,
si vous pouviez faire quelque chose pour les lever,
if he
pour
could
supprimer, il a
do
dit
something
non.
about
Comment
lifting
est-ce
them,
que
he
vous
said
allez-
no. So, well, that was not a surprise to me, not at all. Because this is a very complex situation. There are a number of different tariffs in place, and there are connections between those various initiatives, and the world is increasingly dangerous and divided. So our trade and security relationship is complex. There is not a single Canadian initiative that can change that situation, and that's why there needs to be comprehensive discussions.
Il faut s'attendre encore à ce que plusieurs mois, dans les prochains mois, ça reste
Oh, I guess we can expect several more months of tariffs? Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how long it will take.
Prochaine question.
C'est pas nécessairement comme ça.
Not necessarily, as you say.
Minister, Joanna Smith from The Logic. At one point during the meeting in the Oval Office, the President, when talking about the tariffs and talking about a deal, also made very clear that when it comes to autos, his goal is to have car makers make them in the U.S. and for the tariffs to not make any economical sense to be made in Canada anymore. Do you anticipate lifting tariffs on autos at any point? And what did you tell him in the room about that topic?
Well, we had discussion about all the major issues in the room, so to speak, in the lunch afterwards, including autos, and specifically, without going into the full details, the strategic position of the North American auto industry, or more specifically the Canadian-U.S. auto industry, versus foreign competition, including from Asia, and how that could be enhanced. I and the Canadian government, and I would say the Canadian auto industry, I would actually say the auto industry as a whole, is of the view that Canadian auto workers, Canadian auto companies, Canadian parts companies, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, all play an important role in enhancing the competitiveness of American auto companies. So we will continue to press that case and look for an arrangement that takes full advantage of it for the benefit of the United States, but of course, from our perspective, very much for the benefit of Canada.
And what did he ask you about China in your closed-door meetings, and what did you tell him?
That's why they're closed door. Well, yeah.
Next question.
We had a wide-ranging discussion.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Bonjour, Monsieur Carney. Michel
Hello,
Sabat, la
Mr.
presse canadienne.
Carney,
Je vais
la
essayer de faire du
presse
chemin sur
canadienne.
la question
I'm going
de
to
la
try
collègue
to move
Mélanie,
forward
un peu plus tôt.
with in relation to Melanie's question. Are you coming away from this meeting with anything tangible in terms of tariffs or trade? Well, as I said a few days ago, I was not expecting that there would be any white smoke, because these are negotiations, as I just said. They're very complex. There are a lot of different aspects to these negotiations, but we did make progress. We had very comprehensive, tangible exchanges of views, and there will be additional meetings between ministers and officials, and also between the President and myself through various calls, and in Alberta in the middle of June. So we have made progress. But as is always the case with trade negotiations, any trade negotiations, there is a process and then the end. And not necessarily apparent progress during the process. That's the nature of negotiations.
I mean, to summarize, look, in a negotiation, you don't get like little elements of it. You get an end to a negotiation. We're having a very complex negotiation about a wide range of issues, and it's as I said before I came here, I wouldn't have expected white smoke coming out of this meeting. That was not my expectation. That because of the nature of the negotiation, so you don't expect to have specific progress as things move along, even when you're making progress, because it's a global. That's why it's a global negotiation.
Parlant de l'Alberta, que pensez-vous
In
de
relation
l'idée
to
de Daniel
Alberta,
Smith
what do you think
d'encourager
of Daniel
la
Smith's idea about holding a referendum on Alberta's sovereignty? Well, Canada is stronger when we all work together as Canadians. And I'm an Albertan. I deeply believe in Canada, and one may have questions about this, but my answer is clear.
Canada's stronger when we work together. As an Albertan, I firmly believe that. You can always ask a question, but I know what I would respond clearly.
Prochaine question. Next question.
Bonjour, Monsieur Carney. Olivier
Hello,
Ferrand-Boissé de
Mr.
TVA.
Carney,
Est-ce que
TVA.
Monsieur Trump vous a convaincu qu'il
Did
voulait
Mr.
bel et bien
Trump
renégocier
convince
l'accord
you
de
that he
libre-échange
does
parce que
want to
ça semblait pas clair
renegotiate
dans le
the
bureau
free
ovale tout à l'heure?
trade agreement? Because it didn't seem clear in the Oval Office. Yes, it was clear. Well, it's clear. Well, we began the renegotiation of our trading relationship today, including NAFTA. You've said a number of times that, in your opinion, Mr. Trump wanted to break us in order to own us. Is that still your reading of his intentions after today's meeting? Well, we are strong. Canada is becoming stronger and stronger day after day, week after week, with the new government in place. So I think he'll be disappointed.
Next question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. JP Tasker, CBC News. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you, JP.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Do you feel better or worse about Canada-U.S. relations after meeting with the President today?
It was a very constructive meeting. I feel better about the relations in the sense of, in many respects, one, the posture, if I can put it that way, or the positioning the President took towards us. Secondly, the breadth of discussion and how concrete the discussions were. These are the discussions you have when you're looking to find solutions, as opposed to laying down terms, if you will. So feel better about that. And I would add one other thing, which maybe isn't as obvious, so I should say it, which is that we also discussed a number of issues globally, geostrategically, if I can put it that way, where we have common interests, common concerns, and that, of course, is a sign of a broader and very healthy, a healthy relationship. Look, we have, JP, we have a lot more work to do. I'm not trying to suggest, at any respect, that we can have one meeting and everything's changed, but now we are engaged and very fully engaged.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Ashley Burke, CBC News. What specifically did you say to President Trump about lifting tariffs on Canada? And based on your conversations, what do you think it would take to get those tariffs lifted, and how long could it take?
Well, I can't answer the second part of your question because we don't make that decision. But certainly press the case in a number of areas where we think the tariffs should be lifted. And specifically, I'll give an example with respect to the scourge of fentanyl and the efforts, the considerable efforts that have been made at our border and behind the border in terms of raids as well. Huge investments in border personnel, in drone surveillance, Black Hawk surveillance, and then those are being reinforced, as you would have seen during the campaign, commitments to another 2,000, in effect, 1,000 border guards through CBSA, another 1,000 RCMP, further efforts there. And what we're seeing is huge results for this. Canada's contribution to this problem, cross-border problem, was always very small, but it's down by over 90% with the efforts. And it is an absolute focus of the government. So that is an example of where we would see the case being very strong for the tariffs to be removed. We've made that case. We'll see where that goes. In other areas, the tariffs are, in our view, not in the interests of American competitiveness and jobs. We have more work to do on making those cases on that. Thank you. Pardon? Sur le fentanyl.
On fentanyl, well, we've made a lot of progress when it comes to fentanyl. We started with a very low level compared to Mexico, less than 1%, but we've seen a dramatic drop in the amount of fentanyl that is crossing the border. It's 0.1% now. But that's not by accident. It's because we invested a great deal in the security of our border, and my government will be investing 20% more when it comes to border agents and RCMP. So in terms of lifting the tariffs, I think we have very strong arguments at this time.
Hi, Prime Minister. Stephanie Taylor with the National Post. I heard you say, there's a difference between the President's comments around Canada becoming a 51st state as a wish versus a reality. You told him that Canada was not for sale. But many Canadians are offended and deeply angered by the fact that he keeps repeating this comment. So have you asked the President to stop calling Canada the 51st state?
Yes. Today.
Okay, specifically, what did you ask him?
Exactly what you just said.
But what words did you use? How did you ask him?
Look, I gave you an answer. Do you have a follow-up?
I'll say. What was his answer?
Well, we'll look. I don't know. He's the president. He's his own person. I would go back to showing the difference between a wish and a reality. We're very clear. I've been very clear publicly, consistently. I've been very clear in private. I was clear again in the Oval Office. Would be clear throughout. The president. He understands that we're having a negotiation between sovereign nations, and that we will only pursue and accept a deal that's in the best interests of Canada, not just in the short term, but in the medium and long term for Canada. J'ai dit, c'est pas utile de répéter cette idée.
I said it's not useful for you to be repeating that idea. I said that to him, but he's the president. And he will say whatever he wants to say. But there's a big difference between a desire and reality.
This will be the last question. Sorry, just last question. Okay. Steph didn't take a follow-up. So last question, please. Thank you.
This is Bapal Manga from the Wall Street Journal. Given what's happened with the USMCA and the tariffs that Canada is facing, how do you trust that the U.S. right now is negotiating in good faith, and how do you trust any deal you sign with them?
We'll make that determination over the course of the negotiations. I mean, that's the bottom line on that. It's a process. You see, and I would emphasize the following, which is that we have been in the process, as most would know, of an election, and so this is the point at which a serious discussion begins. And so we had the president, at his invitation, I'm here, he welcomed us. We had a very substantive, wide-ranging discussion with the president, but in the presence of the vice president, the secretary of commerce, the secretary of foreign affairs, and beyond, his chief of staff as well. Now I'm in trouble, Stephen Miller. I think that covers it. That covers it? I hope so. And we have some very specific things to follow up on and build out from that. And in any negotiation, then you make a determination based on that. It also, part of what you make a determination based on is, are the incentives aligned in the agreement that you get? And I think the lesson would be of this experience is to ensure that the incentives are aligned and durably so between the two countries, and that is a way that agreements are self-reinforcing. Thank you very much.